Hello and welcome to another Excel demo with Rich Kerr. In this scenario, we'll be looking at the powerful Format as Table feature in Excel, which replaces the list function from earlier versions of Excel. So I've got some sample column headings, order number, salesperson, product, and amount. And so go ahead and put in some column headings there. You can use the same ones as me if you like. You don't have to. I'm going to create some sample data. So I'll go to cell A2 and type in 1000, and I'll do Control Enter so I stay focused on that cell rather than landing in cell A3. And I'd like to create a sequence of values. And there's obviously a few ways we can do this. One that I'll demonstrate here as a side feature of this video is using the Fill Series tool that you can find on the Home tab. So on the right side of the Home tab, there's that little blue box with an arrow in it underneath the auto sum function. And I'll click it and choose Series. And I want to create a series of data in column A. So where it says Series In, I'll choose Columns. And I'd like to have a linear growth rate so that each value or each increment stays consistent. So I'm going to say the step value is 1, and the stop value I'll say is 1100. So this is going to create 100 entries, really 101 because we're going from 1000 to 1100. So we'll click OK, and there's my data. So it automatically fills that down for us. And if we were to scroll down the spreadsheet, we can see that it does in fact go to the value of 1100. Okay, so for salesperson, I'll do, let's see, we'll do Jerry, Elaine, George, Claire, maybe Elaine again, Theo, maybe Jerry again, and George, and maybe Monica. I want to select that range, so I've got Jerry, Elaine, George, Claire, Elaine, Theo, Jerry, George, and Monica. And I will select that range, and this time I can simply double-click the autofill handle, which will force it to fill down until the data stops in the adjacent column. Okay, let's go to the product column, and let's say that our salespeople sell pizza, ice cream, spinach, and gumbo. And I'm going to select that range, and I will double click to fill that down. And finally, for the amount column, I'll say the first order was for we'll say $75, and the next order was for $80. And I'll select both of my seed values and double click the autofill handle to fill down. So that goes by an increment of 5, and I'll turn on the accounting style number format. So I've got that data there. Now in a previous example, another video, we had looked at using the subtotal function, which you could do here, but let's take a look at another way of finding out some information about our sales data. On the Home tab, a little bit right of center, is the Format as Table icon. So you'll just want to make sure that your mouse is clicked on one of the cells inside your data set. I don't want to be out in column Q or row 3000. I want to be somewhere within this data set. I'll choose Format as Table, which provides a drop-down list of formats. And there's a number of them inside this list, and you can just kind of pick one that you like. And once you choose one from that list, the Format as Table confirmation dialog will appear, showing you that it suspects you intend to select the range from A1 through D102. And that's correct. So we'll leave that selected. And I do in fact have a header row. So I'll leave that checked and click OK. So that then turns the normal Excel range into what we now call a table. And a new section of my ribbon has emerged called Table Tools. And I can modify a variety of things about my table. For example, if I want a different style, my drop-down list of styles now is a live preview list, so I can kind of go through and select a variety of styles. and whichever one I click on will be implemented. And let's say I like this style, but maybe I'm not a huge fan of the alternate row shading that's happening. So there's in this Table Tools Design tab, there's a check mark labeled Banded Rows. So I'm going to uncheck that, and now my rows are not banded. They are all the same shade except for, of course, the header row. Perhaps I'd like the order column to stand out. So I'll place a check mark on first column, which then does some additional formatting to column A. Now, depending on the style you chose, that might be more or less pronounced. In some of the styles, it maybe just makes the text bold. In the particular style that I chose, it made it bold, but also added a darker background color. Now, the real magic happens when you turn on the total row. So that is one of the table style options checkboxes. So I'll select total row, which now takes me down to the last row and adds a new row that actually is totaling my amount column. Interestingly, my column headings now no longer say A, B, C, D, but they have the values from the header row. So if I'm using a table construct like this, I no longer have to use the freeze panes option in Excel to identify which column I'm in, which is nice. So I've got my total row, and I'm going to jump back to the top. Remember, you can do a Control Home to go back to the top of your spreadsheet. So let's say I'm interested in seeing what the total sales were, not for this entire list, but just for, we'll say, Claire. So I'll hit the drop down arrow on salesperson, which gives me the ability to filter the data. So I will uncheck select all and just check Claire and click OK. So now I'm only looking at the Claire rows, and now my total row has changed. So it is dynamic. The value in the total row reflects the filtered data, which is as you would want. So let's say we wanted to find out the total for Claire's sale of spinach. So I'm going to add an additional filter by going to the product column. I will deselect select all and just select spinach and click OK. So I've now narrowed it down even further, and I see the sales by Claire of spinach. I see what those individual rows were, and now what the total is. Or perhaps I am the manager of Claire and Elaine. So I'll add Elaine into the mix by hitting the drop down on salesperson and checking her value. So now I have more entries. So I now have Claire and Elaine sales of spinach. Perhaps I want to know how they did with pizza. So I will uncheck spinach and do pizza instead. So it's very flexible, very easy to modify. Now perhaps what I'm interested in is not the total sales of pizza by Elaine and Claire, but rather the average. So that cell D103, which has the total, if you go to that cell, you'll see there's actually a drop-down arrow for that cell, which is not a filter, but rather the ability to change the functionality. So I'm going to switch it to the average. So now I have the average sale of pizza by Claire and Elaine. And that's what's known as a table in Excel. You can sort of think of it as pivot table light. It doesn't have all the functionality of a true full-blown pivot table, but sometimes that's overkill, and this is all you need. Thanks for checking in. Come back soon for more Excel demos. Have a great day.